Hey everyone, and welcome back to Small Screen Sagas. I'm your host, Nicole. Today we are talking about the TV show From, Season 1, Episode 3, entitled Choosing Day. I will pretty much stick to that same formula that I did in the last episode, just kind of breaking it down per character or characters if they're sort of in a group for the episode and going from there. But there's a few notes that I thought about this episode I meant to talk on or touch upon on episode 2. I didn't, so I want to bring it up now. And that's a few questions that's come up. One I can't go too deeper into because it sort of ties into the next season, but I do have a question. It's still a valid question, which is the time in the town, are they on the same timeline as in the real world? Because Donna mentions she's been here 3 months, 6 years, 3 years, 6 months, 17 days. And then Christy mentioned the ambulance, and she's like, yeah, we got some supplies from the ambulance a few years ago, which is important. That comes up a little bit later that I'm like, hold on, years ago. Is the time frame in the show different from the time frame in real life? So maybe Donna feels that she's been here for 3 years, but really she's only been missing the real world for a year. I want to bring that up. It's technically not even a spoiler because it hasn't been addressed. It's just that when one of them mentioned the time that they've been there, I was like, have you really been there for that amount of time? Another thing is with them growing their own fruit or their own food, it does make me wonder why the monsters don't attack the food. Like, it seems like that would be even easier. Like, you smash the food up every night and they're going to starve. So I don't know if that, of course, then there would be no show. Okay, then what would they do if they're starving? But I just thought about it when we saw, Fatima eating her blueberries and we see all this fruit and we see apples and blah, blah. I'm wondering, like, why don't the monsters attack their food source? That's like 101 when you're in a war or when you're trying to terrorize people. Like, go ahead and hit them from the resources and knock them off there. But we'll see. And then the last point I want to make, and this is sort of just something that bothers me with all shows, but it's really bothering me with From, since we are stuck in a town, meaning not new characters are coming often unless they're introduced to us. And that's in regards to the extras. Generally, extras are no big deal. You just have them in the background. But when you're on an island or a remote town, I'm thinking of Lost for the island. In this case, you're on a remote town. To me, it's very important that the show keeps the extras like the same consistent extras. I don't want to see someone getting breakfast today and then tomorrow you just never see that character again. Like, to me, it would make it better if they're in this town and there's 50 people or so in this town, that even if they're not a talking extra, we just see them walking by. And so that's just a small little thing, because I just noticed a few people in this episode. I'm like, oh, I haven't seen them in a while. And I'm like, well, yeah, they're extras, but it's a small town. I should just be able to recognize the people in the town. So, small thing, that's it. Want to throw those three things out there before we get started. Let me know if you guys think I'm tripping for even bringing it up. Like, does it matter about the extras, and what your theories are on the time? Is there a time difference between the From world and the real world? And then the food source. What's going on with that? Kenny even mentions later, we don't know where the animals come from, but they're here. So some things, it's kind of good just not to even question. It's here. We don't care. And if that's going to be part of the mystery, like, hey, that's not important to the overall story, then that's fine as well. All right, let's first talk about Kenny's mom. We see her. She's up and at it the next day. She's at the diner. She's making breakfast. She has coffee on. She even pops Jade because he comes in trying to make his own food and cuts the line. And then Kenny tells Christy, like, she's in denial. I already told you that about my family. But later on in the episode, when she goes home and she's by herself, she grieves. She does have a little vigil set up for her husband. She does grieve him and cry. So I like seeing that. And I want to see where her character goes. Like, I think she's going to be important. She's, especially she's strong, because when she popped Jade over the head while everyone else is looking at him, I appreciated that. Speaking of Jade, he'll be the next person we discuss. So Jade is an asshole. We've seen that almost from the moment we met him to when he was trying to touch Boyd's face and saying, "You're beautiful." He was clearly on drugs at that moment. But he wakes up in the colony house. He is strapped to the bed, but he starts screaming, which I don't blame him. Like, you wake up, you're trapped. Actually, if you wake up and you're tied to the bed, I might think, okay, this is my chance to hurry up and sneak out. Someone has kidnapped me. I'm tied to a bed. So I probably wouldn't make a lot of noise. I would probably be like, let me escape while no one else is here. But he starts shouting, and Donna comes and says, hey, like, you're going to wake everyone up. Everyone's asleep. He's mad. And she's like, you know what? We need to have a talk. So after talking with Donna, he thinks it's a joke. He's like, oh, Toby, who's the friend that died, that was in the car crash, that was in the car with him in the car crash as well, that he was driving, and that's the one that Christy killed. But he's like, Toby's playing some elaborate trick. I know this had to cost him a lot of money. So he kind of feels like he's on an escape room type of thing, or a type of quest or whatever, where this is his opportunity just to have a little fun, and this is part of Toby's game, you know? So he thinks these people are actors. He even takes a bike from a resident. He's just having a ball at this point. Now, one thing that does give Jade some, you know, like, whoa, maybe this is real. But even then, he thinks it's an elaborate trick, because there are haunted houses that make stuff look real. There's, you know, technology is so good. People are so good with the animation and the tronics and all that stuff. So I get it where he's still like, skeptical about it. But he goes into some cellar because he thinks he's on like a little mission here. And he's frightened by a dead soldier who's like crushed by this big boulder, and kind of screams at him. And when he falls back, you know, in horror and shock, he does see like a signal or some type of shape or sign, which is significant. It will come up throughout the rest of the season. So I thought then he became a believer, but even then he was like, whoa, Toby, you're great. This costs you a lot of money. It's not until Kenny actually shows him Toby's dead body with all the blood that Jade starts crying and breaks down and realizes where he really is, and all the stuff that they've been telling him about these monsters coming out at night are real. And at this point, the only reason why Kenny even showed him, because when they were having their choosing ceremony, which we'll get to in a minute, Jade is cracking me up, because he's like, whoa, this is dramatic, and like making jokes. It was funny. It was very funny. Especially because you just realize he still doesn't know. He's sort of the one that's in denial at that point. But yeah, after seeing Toby's body, that does make him realize, yeah, everything they told me is true. All right, so let's get to Boyd, Father Khatri, and Frank. This was a heavy Boyd episode. He had a very big decision to make. It's going back to that first episode with Lauren, the mother, and Megan, the daughter, who died. Not necessarily saying it was Frank's fault, because the mom was there. I don't know why she kept saying, Megan, come to me. She should have ran up and said, little girl, get away from that window, or had that talk. Like, I felt like maybe they were treating Megan still as if everything was normal, and maybe like as a little kid, but they needed to do the Rick Grimes talk with her and tell her, like, you were not safe here. It doesn't matter if people are around, you are not safe. And kind of give her that sterning talk and let her know what she needs to do as well in her best interest to keep herself safe. Not blaming the victim, not blaming a little girl. I'm just saying, I don't think it was solely on Frank. Yeah, he was a drunk. The mom knew he was a drunk. Why didn't she close the house up herself? Then at this point, you got to just, like, if you have a no good husband, then you're okay. You got to step up and do the thing. Not blaming Lauren necessarily either, but I'm just saying. So they're having this conversation. The rules are, you break a rule, the punishment is the box. And Boyd's kind of mad because he's like, I always thought this box would be here as a deterrent. I didn't think we would actually have to use it. And I can't go through with it. And he goes to Father Khatri for advice, thinking he'll probably tell him like some, religious reason of why it's okay to forgive Frank. But Father Khatri's like, nah. He's like, you got to do it. Because if you don't, people are going to realize that when you say this is a punishment, it's not really. Like, your word's not going to hold weight anymore. Or what if it happens again? Then somebody else is going to want forgiveness. They broke the rules or whatever. So Father Khatri, I realized what he was saying, and I agree. I agree. Like, don't say it if you cannot keep it up. If you cannot keep the punishment up. And that even goes for anything like even in parenting. Like, if you tell your kid you're going to be on punishment for 3 weeks, Don't say that unless you can stick to it and they're going to be on punishment for 3 weeks. Because then after that, your word is not going to mean as much. They're going to be like, yeah, right. And that's pretty much what he's telling Boyd right here. So he takes Frank out. He takes him out because he says, what do you want to have a last meal type of thing? And Frank's like, I want to go and visit the swing that my daughter loved. And he said, I wasn't always like this. And I like that Boyd said none of us were. So I'm imagining Frank prior to getting here, probably not a drunk. He says he was a good dad. He says they got the Megan, a dollhouse, and she was so happy the Christmas before they came there. And he does seem remorseful for his inactions and what that did lead to what happened to his family. Because maybe if he was there, maybe he would have been closing up and Megan would have been talking to her mom and she maybe not have talked to the lady, the monster at the window. So I get it. I get the full conversation. I get both sides. And I even get when Boyd interrupts the choosing ceremony and was like, hey, there's a difference between savagery and consequences. But luckily, Frank steps up and says, you know what? I'm going to take my punishment. I'm not going to go out into the woods and make a life in a shack out. That's scary. I would just be like, can you just shoot me? Like, you just kind of turn around and you shoot me in the head. Like, why make me get killed by torture? Like, that does sound pretty bad. Like, just shoot me if you're going to kill me. So if my punishment is death, just make it quick is what I would request. All right, then we have Victor, Ethan, and the little boy in white. So we're going to see Victor a little bit more this episode. He's carrying around his lunch pail still. He's trying to keep away from the Matthews and their children. And he's like measuring, like he's seeing him take steps and he's measuring the amount of steps. And Ethan makes small talk with him and he doesn't want to mess with you. He's like, I don't want no smoke. Your sister already didn't like me. I don't want no problems. I don't want Donna getting mad at me if there's any problem. But that's when Ethan mentions the little boy in white, or he says his friend that lives outside. And Victor is very interested in this little boy. Very, very interested. And he goes, well, tell him the next time you see him that I said hi. So obviously Victor knows about this boy in white. Has Victor told anyone else about this boy in white? Doesn't sound like it, because Ethan hasn't told anybody else yet about this boy in white. But the one person he finally did tell is Victor, who's not going to tell anyone. And I feel like someone should know this information. But Victor tells Ethan that he's measuring to see if the trees have moved. I'm really curious about that. I think that's going to be important. I don't think it's come up yet in the rest of the season or anything like that. But I do feel like whatever Victor says, and even Ethan, like we might write off and be like, whatever nonsense they're talking about. And I think those are the two people that we need to be paying attention to the nonsense that they're talking about. So if Victor thinks the trees are moving, I'm going to say, yeah, the trees might be moving. I don't know what that means. Are they moving closer? Are they moving farther? I don't know. But I'm going to pay attention to what he says. So we'll see where that goes. And we'll see, hopefully find out more about the boy in white and like, who is he? I mean, obviously he's not real because no one else can see him. And he's been a boy for a long time if Victor knows him. So we'll see where that goes. And then last is the Matthews having their choosing day. So they get this big choosing ceremony. Father Catrice showed them already around town, which I thought that was trifling that they showed him the house with the blood stain. Like, come on. It wasn't even like a little stain on the wall. It was blood stains all over the walls, all on the bed. Like, it's clearly someone got viciously murdered. I wouldn't, like, seeing those blood stains in itself would be scary. It's not that, oh, we removed the bodies. Okay, but look at the stains. How am I supposed to get in here? We're supposed to scrub these walls off and then go to sleep? It's just creepy. Or I don't know. I don't know if they would stay in that room. I would be like, let's just close that room off or whatever. But they have this choosing ceremony, and they say everyone has to choose, and once you make that choice, it's final. And all I thought was, why? Why is the choice final? Why can't someone try it out for a few days? Why can't they live in town for a month or two and then realize, you know what, I want to stay at the Colling house, or vice versa? So I didn't get why this rule is so strong and why Donna was being so harsh about it. Like, because once the three Matthews all said town and then Julie says colony house, Donna's like, well, she made her choice. She made her choice. And I get Tabitha's reaction, like, fine, I'll go to colony house too. And they're like, nope, all decisions are final. I'm like, what the heck why are all decisions final? Because Tabitha made a point. Julie's underage. So but at the same time, I've already mentioned, we're in a new world. There are no children here. Everybody has to make a choice. So I get that, but I just didn't get why it was so strong on once you make the choice, it's final. So they need to explain that to me a little more. I would love to see or hear, why is it final once you make that choice? Why? We'll see. It was an okay episode. It was fine. I can't wait to see what happens next because I can't remember the next episode, but obviously Frank did not make it in that box, which even Jim understood. He's like, are you going to put Talisman in there? And Boyd's like, no. Then come on, just shoot me in the head. So all in all, decent episode. No problem with it. Just wasn't one of my like, oh my gosh, that was so good at the, after you watched. It wasn't one of those, but they can all be that. So I will be back shortly again, though, with another recap on episode 4. Once again, if you guys want to be part of the podcast, hit me up, host@theverdictsin.com, or on Twitter @theverdictsin, or facebook.com/verdictsin. I'd love to read your feedback on the show, or if you want to send in a quick audio recap, you can also do that, and we'll play it on the podcast. All right. Thank you so much. Bye.